Okay, good morning everyone, and today we will see something very interesting in 3ds Max. That is, we need to focus our attention on two modeling tools, and one is called prooboolean, that is a compound object, and one is a modifier that is extremely complex. It is rich of features, and it is called edit poly. First of all, we will start with prooboolean, that is a compound object. What it means? It means that it allows you to combine objects that we have created before. Last week we have already seen something like this. We have seen a compound object called loft, that was the one that you have used to create tentacles of the octopus. You have seen it in combination with shapes. Prooboolean instead is a compound object that works only with solid objects, and they must be 3D solid. So it works if it works correctly if your objects are filled inside. It doesn't work if your objects are hollow. And this is important because I will show you at the beginning examples of using prooboolean with boxes, spheres, cylinders, but then we will go on and I will show you more and more complex operations, and I will show you that you can use prooboolean with whatever 3D solid, no matter how you have created that starting object. So, first of all, what it means, you can make operations between solids. That's not that hard, but what it means is that you can make at least 3 simple operations called subtraction, union, and intersection. That means you can take 2 solids and then you can remove one solid from your first one, and what remains is first solid minus second one. Or you can make join. That means you can have 2 objects, you can fuse them and they will become one object only. Last but not least, it's called intersection. That means you can make 2 objects like these, and then you will intersect, and what remains is only the solid part that is in between them all. So I will make one very basic example first, so that we can understand also what it means. But imagine this. Imagine we have like this shape here. I'll just make it thicker as that. So imagine we have this object. Then we make another object like this, and we will call this solid number 2, and we call this solid number 1. If we make a subtraction, basically what we do is we remove solid number 2 from solid number 1, and the result will be a shape that will have this final result. So basically it is solid 1 minus solid 2, and this would be subtraction. If we make union instead, let's say we have again solid 1, then we have solid number 2. Making union means that basically we add, make it like 1 plus 2, And the result will be that these two objects will be fused together, and the result will be one single object with this final shape, that is 1 plus 2. This is union. Last but not least is an operation that is called intersection, and it works like this. Let's say we have solid number 1, and again we have solid number 2. If we make intersection, basically what we keep is that part that at the same time is inside solid number 1 and solid number 2. So what remains will be this small part only, this one. And this is intersection. So what we have to do now is we have to see how to make this happening in 3ds Max. So we have to create, first of all, solid objects. And only, just to be fast, I will create objects by using 3-dimensional primitives. So I will make a box, and I make a sphere. And you may also notice that these objects are not randomly placed into the space, but there is actually a certain part of the sphere that is inside the box. And what I will do now is very simple, that is this. When I use prooboolean, I need to choose which for me is first solid, so which is solid 1, and which is solid number 2. So in order to make this happening, I have to select from the beginning which for me is going to be solid 1. Then let me just one small thing in here, that is I have to adjust. Okay, I have to adjust something into my settings. Okay. Okay, 1 second. Okay. Perfect. So that I can check. Perfect. Give me 3 seconds. Okay. Excellent. And here we are. Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you. And I can close this. Perfect. So let's start immediately with 3ds Max, and so that we won't waste our time. So what we have to do today? Today we have to see two main tools in 3ds Max. There are, first of all, I need to show you one compound object that is called prooboolean. Second of all, I will show you a modifier that is called edit poly. How do we send our homework? For now, don't send anything, because I'm trying to find an interesting way to let you upload homework to a folder, and but for now you don't need to send any homework, because if you send it into the email, after a while I will start losing the control of homeworks you send me by mail. So wait a few more days, then I will figure it out, but not now. You don't need to do it. Okay, so let's see this. Let's see first thing that is called prooboolean. Prooboolean is a compound object. What it does is it works with solid objects only. It allows you to make three main operations that are called subtraction, union, and intersection. And what they are is basically this. Look, imagine, and I will just imagine we have a board, but imagine we have two at least solid objects, like we have a box, and then we have a sphere. Making a subtraction between solid means that we can remove the volume of the sphere from the volume of the box. So for example, if we do these, our final object will be a solid that will have this kind of shape. That is the box minus this part that has been removed by using the volume of the sphere. This is most common interesting operation that you can do with prooboolean. Another operation that is called union. That means this. Again, imagine we have two solid objects. Union is the exact opposite. So what it does is it combines objects together. It basically turns these two objects in one solid shape that is geometrically this one here. So it is this result, and basically whatever was in between becomes fused together, and they act like one object only. It looks like making a group, but this is not. This is a geometric operation. So in reality, if you had, for example, two different materials, they are combined together into one. And this also works only between solid objects, while if you make groups, you can make a group that contains different objects. You can group shapes with solids, with lights, for example, even if we haven't seen them already. Last but not least is the tool that is called intersection. And what is intersection is this. Again, let's imagine we have our two at least two, but then I will show you that with prooboolean you can use even more. But let's say you have two solid objects. With prooboolean you make a operation in between these solids, and what remains will be only that part of volume that your solid objects are sharing in common. So this is the concept, this is what prooboolean does. Let's see now how to do this with 3ds Max. That is very simple. First of all, I will show you examples that are mainly created by using standard primitives. So you will see me using boxes, spheres, cylinders, but not because you can use only those objects, but simply because this will be faster. The more examples we will see, the more complex they will be. So we will see that we can use loft objects, we can use lathe, extruded, no matter how the solid is created. The only important thing is that the solid must be a correct solid object. So not the one that has like just thin walls and no volume inside. So let's start by doing this. First, I make these two objects that basically are same things that I've drawn before, but now they are in 3 dimensions. When I use prooboolean, what I have to do is I have simply to select one object at the beginning. With one object selected, I have to find the prooboolean button that is here. So I have to go to Create, I have to click Geometry, and then I have to open the menu where I read standard primitives, and then I will find the menu called Compound Objects. In here you will notice that there are many other compound objects that are available, and they work with solid objects. We will focus our attention to one only, that is this one, that is prooboolean. And just in case, let's highlight it, no, with this one. Here, prooboolean. What prooboolean does is it makes those operations that we have seen in this simple way. We select one object, then we click prooboolean, and we can notice this. If we simply scroll a little bit down the prooboolean menu, we can check that. First of all, in here, we have the possibility to choose one of those 3 main operations that I want to show you. So we have subtraction, that is by default starting operation. But then we have also intersection, and then we have union. What we have to do is we have to select immediately which operation we want to do in between our solid objects. So I will keep subtraction for now. Then I click this button that is called Start Picking, and I will pick second solid object that I have created in my scene. So I click my sphere. Boom! When this happens, what I obtain is I obtain a subtraction, and into the specific case I obtain that I have the box that is solid number 1 minus the sphere that was solid number 2, and my 3D model will look like this. That is what was the box before minus the part of the sphere that was intersecting the box itself, and this is called subtraction. You will notice when you will use prooboolean that there is that button that is called start picking, that once that you click remains highlighted in blue. This is why, simply because prooboolean will allow you to make operations with more than two solids at the same time. So if we first create several objects, we can, let's say, start by using a box. Then I will start removing from the box several other solids, and I will do immediately this other example. Look, let's say we have a box again, and this would be our starting object. But then, before using prooboolean, I will create not just one additional solid, but I will create more. So I create two spheres here. I don't know. I'm just randomly creating other objects. I make a cone. I can make a torus, like these, and just to make the thing a little bit more spicy, I will make even duplicates. But you can see at least that all these objects have some intersections in between. So they are not just things randomly placed into the scene, but at least you can see that the sphere is a little bit inside the box, as well as the cone, and as well as all these torus solid shapes. So again, what I have to do is I need to select which for me is my object number 1, and to do this I will simply press escape and I select it, but it has to be one selected object. Then I go to create geometry compound, I click prooboolean, and exactly as I did before, I will simply check that subtraction is the operation that I am going to do. If this is true, now I can click start picking, and I will start by picking all other solid objects that I have created into my scene. So and they must be clicked one by one. So I click the sphere, and again, you see that that part of the sphere has been cut out from the box. But start picking, as I'm saying, is still in blue, so it's still active. And I can keep clicking objects, so I will click the cone, poof, and you see that even the volume of the cone has been removed by the box. Then I click this sphere, and I keep doing these, so I keep clicking these, and that, and all of these objects are basically carving my starting box in those areas that is where they had volume in common. And only when I'm done, I just click start picking again to close the creation of my prooboolean compound object. Besides making weird examples of things that are cutting other things, I want to show you at least two extremely useful cases, that is, ways that you can, practical ways that you can use prooboolean. Let's see this. Example number 1. This would be phenomenal. Look, is this. I make one big box. Then I make a box that is a little bit larger, and this box is a little bit shorter, okay, and a little bit narrower. But I will make it just a little bit taller, like so. Then I make another one. That, and let's write here 53 just for height, only because in this way I can remember this number. Then I will make another box in here. That would be longer, thinner, and again it will have the height 53, not minus, just 53. So what I have here is, look, I have my starting box that is the one that is taller, but then I have a box that is longer but it is shorter and narrower, and another box that is narrower but it is larger, shorter. So what happens now if I play with prooboolean is very simple. That is, if I select as starting box, so my solid number 1, I select also first big box that I have created. With this box selected, I go to create, compound objects, prooboolean. I check that I'm using subtraction. I click start picking, and then I pick first additional box and second additional box that will be removed from my starting one, and boom, and I close, and in 3 seconds I obtain one solid object that is a table. So we will see that, for example, we have made tables in other ways. At the very beginning, if you remember, we have made examples like making one box as the top, 4 boxes for legs, and then make a group. What's the difference? This will be one solid, so you don't have to group it. But for example, this will have also one material, while if you make groups, you can have different materials for different objects. So there are just slightly different ways to obtain same kind of objects. Let's go to example number 2 instead. So why not? Let's keep the table in here, and let's see this. I want to make another solid object, and just to show you that prooboolean doesn't work only if you are using boxes, I will make now solid shapes by using other features. So I will make a line, and I will pay attention that my line must be a closed one. This is why. Simply because if I now use extrude, and I was using a closed line, by using extrude now, it should be here, extrude, I will make a correct solid object, and by that I mean that you can see that inside this wall, you can see that the wall has volume, it is capped. But I will do something more now, that is this. I will make another line, and just to make it more visible, I will draw it here, then I will move it into the right position, but I will make this solid shape, this closed shape. There is line, line. Then I make this angled side, then another angled side, and then I close my shape. Okay? Again, what I will do now is I will extrude it so that I turn my closed shape into a solid object. Because I've used extrude a second ago, you will notice that your extrude has same exact value that you were doing before, but I'm not interested in these. I will make it shorter instead. Perfect. So now what I do is simply this. I move this object in this way so that it goes basically through the wall, and I also move this shape a little bit above. More or less. I mean, I can be happy with this result. Perfect. So see now, we have this big C-shaped solid object. We have this smaller weird shape, but if we select this object that is clearly a wall, then we go to create, compound, prooboolean, and again I'm showing you subtraction. So if I keep subtraction, I click start picking, then I pick this object, and what I do in reality is both I create this hole in my wall in order to create the window, and I will create a very realistic window like in the one that we have even at school or in most Italian houses. That has also these angled walls next to the hole of the window, just to make easier to open the window and let more light passing through. Okay? Let me show you, just one last example, simply because we are making this room. Just to show you how versatile and how many possibilities you have to work with prooboolean and subtraction. For example, we'll make these. Look, I make a big box. Then I make a smaller box like this, and then I can simply push this box inside my first one, but not all the way through, and I'll move it up. Last but not least, I will make duplicates. A few more. Why not? Then I will just move these a little bit better. So basically what I have is, I have one big box, and I have these smaller boxes inside. If I select my starting bigger box and I go to compound, prooboolean, subtraction, then I click start picking, and I start picking all these other boxes like these, and that. And at the end, I will obtain something that will look, of course, this is just as an example, so it's not super precise, but it will be a bookshelf. Okay? Later on, we will go back to subtraction because I will show you that you are also able to combine multiple operations. We can make subtraction, intersection, and union inside same object. For now, let's study one operation at a time. So, and let's delete all these things. Let's explore another operation, the one that is called union. What is union? Union is, too simple. That is, look, if I have this box and I make these duplicate, just to be fast, what happens here is this. You will notice that this box in reality goes through my first one, and so on. Second thing that you may notice is that in my Scene Explorer we have all our 4 independent boxes. Last but not least, what happens here is this. Because this box and this box are 2 completely independent solid, in reality, in here, we don't even have edges. And how can we know this? What you can do in your 3ds Max is this. If you want to see your 3D solids and you want to highlight them better, you want to see better where this blue thing finishes and when this other blue thing starts, you can simply left click in this option of your viewport that is called default shading up here. And you can simply enable one parameter that is called edged faces, this one. If you do this, you will notice that whenever you select objects, you will have white visible edges. So your scenes won't look, again, just that uniform blue color, but also you will notice that even if you don't select objects, your objects show those visible dark blue edges. So you can see that now these and this box have edges going inside each other, but see what happens if I use union. So to use union, what I have to do is I have to change my operation, and to change the operation you have simply to go to compound, prooboolean, and you can change the operation simply when start picking has not yet clicked. So if you see this, can you see that start clicking is gray? And if start picking is gray, I can first change operation to union, and then I will click start picking. So I click union first, then start picking, and now I can click other objects. And you need to see this. Look at what happens in those areas where geometry was shared, and look also what happens in this part of 3ds Max where I have all my listed shapes. You will notice this. Look, I click union, I start picking, I pick these, and boom! Now these objects are geometrically fused together. I can keep clicking objects. I can keep clicking here and then here, and you will see that now those volumes are gone, first of all. So my object now is one single geometry that has this profile, okay? And also, if you read into the File Explorer here, you will see that all additional objects are gone because they are brought inside the prooboolean, and the only one that remains is my starting object, the one that was called box1. And then I will close, start picking. So this is union that basically fuses objects together. Let's see last operation, sorry for choking, and let's see last operation that would be intersection. That is this. If I have something like this box and let's create something different. What? A cone. Perfect. Let's make it like this. So what we can see now is that we have that cone and the box are sharing some volume in between. So what intersection does is it keeps that volume only. And it works like this. Again, you select one starting object only, then you click compound object, then you click prooboolean. Again, you change the operation first, so I click intersection, and now I click start picking, and I will pick that second solid that is my cylinder. Boom! And this is intersection. So it means it is the volume that at the same time was inside the box and inside the cone. Again, if you see this operation used just between two solids at the very beginning, you may say that you will never use these options. So what I want to show you now is I want to show you in one example how you can combine multiple options together. First, I will do something random, so I will do something just by using a bunch of solids, just to make something nice looking. But then I will make an example that is a little bit more precise, and I will show you how to create something realistic with these three options together. So look. Example number one is I make just a bunch of solid objects, like I make this box, I make this box, this one, then I make a couple of cylinders, like these, and I rotate them so that we will go through my boxes. So what I'm creating is right now just solids that have volume in common, okay? And I will do this. I will start by joining all my boxes. So I make prooboolean. I change the operation when start picking is not selected. So I make union first, then I click start picking, and I pick 1, 2, 3. So all my boxes have been fused together. Now I need to remove from my boxes those 2 cylinders. And I need to change the operation from union to subtraction. I can do this, but again, I need to take care that changing the operation in order to be effective must be made when start picking is not highlighted in blue. So I will turn off start picking. I change now to subtraction, and then I click start picking, and I pick this cylinder and this cylinder. And in this way, my 2 cylinders have been cut out from those joined boxes. Okay? Last but not least, I want to make intersection. So I create even now another object. Let's say I make a sphere. And just to make it prettier, I will scale it like this. So now I will select my prooboolean object, so I can click the result of my previous operation. I go to the Modify tab, and again I find Start Picking. But again, I need to change first the operation to intersection, and only then I can click Start Picking, and I pick the sphere. And this is the result of having boxes joined together. Then from boxes I have cut the volume of the cylinders, and at the end I have used intersection just to leave the volume that at the same time was inside the sphere, the scaled sphere, and the previous result. So I showed you that you can use more than one operation inside the same prooboolean with more than 2 solids. So I will do same exact steps. What I will do is simply I will use not just random solid objects, but I will create something that makes a little bit more sense. That will be this. Look, I make 2 cylinders, one like this, one like that, but I need that my 2 cylinders have to share their center, so their pivot point must perfectly match, because I want them to be concentric. So I will use snap, and I will use just snap to the pivot, and I will move my cylinder number 2 inside my cylinder number 1. But in this way, they will have perfectly matching pivot points, so they have also same center. And I will adjust a little bit the shape of these 2 cylinders. I will also turn off the snap because I don't need it, and I will make the radius of this cylinder a little bit larger. But I will also make the height of this cylinder a little bit taller, and I will move it up so that I have these 2 cylinders that are perfectly matching. One is larger shorter, one is thinner, longer. I want to make them horizontal, so I select both and I do this simple step. I turn on angle snap and I rotate them so that they will be 90 degrees rotated, and now they are horizontal. Okay? Look at that. Last but not least, with these two selected cylinders, I will hold Shift in my keyboard and I rotate them 90 degrees in this direction so that they are making something that looks like a cross-shaped setup. Okay? Ready for this? Look. I select one of my cylinder and I go to Create, Standard, Compound, prooboolean, and I make union so that I join the two of my short, thick cylinders. So I make union, I click Start Picking, and I join this big but short cylinder with this second big but short cylinder. Then I will close Start Picking and I click Subtraction. I start picking again and I remove from these two joined cylinders, I remove those smaller but longer cylinders that are inside. So I will subtract this and that. And I have almost done, because what I have here is I have something that looks like a cross vault, the one that we can see inside a lot of churches or old buildings. But there is a problem. That is, I want to just keep top half of the cross vault, and also you can notice that there are these sides that have completely different length. One is longer, one is shorter, and so on and so on. So what I will do is this. I make a box. And I'm making it just random at the beginning because if I see now the pivot of my cross vault is not more into its starting center, but it is just somewhere. That technically is the position of my starting cylinder. So what I will do next is this. I move the pivot of the cross vault, and I want the pivot to be perfectly in this vertex here. So I need to use snap, snap to the vertex and snap to the pivot, so that I can move the pivot of my cross vault up here. Boom. And this is perfectly the center of my cross vault. Why doing this? Because if I want now to move the box into the same position, I can be very precise. Just click snap, snap to the pivot, and I will move the box from its pivot to the pivot. Oops, sorry. I made a mistake. I have snapped to the pivot. So I move the box from its pivot, poof, to the pivot of the vault. So now, if I change dimensions of the box, they will be precise and they will go perfectly half right, half left, and also half back, half forth. So I make my box a lot more precise. So I make it like a square. So let's say 110 by 110, so that from the top it will be a perfect square. And I will change the height to go down. Fantastic, isn't it? Okay. So now that I have this box in this position with this dimension and everything is great, I select the cross bolt that is a prooboolean. I change operation to intersection. Then I click start picking and I pick the box. If I'm right, and I hope I am, what remains will be just a perfectly square cross bolt. Believable, isn't it? Last but not least, you need to know one more thing about prooboolean. It is a little bit complex, but it is extremely important. That is this. All those objects that we are combining together inside prooboolean are not gone, are not lost forever, while in reality they are simply combined inside the one object called prooboolean. But if I want to check them, if I want to modify them, I can still do this. It is just not that easy to do it, but I mean, not even impossible. So, last thing that I want to show you with prooboolean, and I will make also another example, will be this. If we select our prooboolean compound object and we go to the Modify tab, we can see that next to, oops, this is a bit too big, next to prooboolean, we can see this small triangular button. Okay? Why this is important? Simply because if we click inside this button, we can notice that underneath prooboolean there will be an option called operands. And see this, because this would be, I mean, a little bit complex but phenomenal. If we click operands and we scroll down the prooboolean menu, we can notice that this prooboolean is nothing else than the result of using a cylinder union with another cylinder, subtraction with another cylinder, subtraction with another cylinder, intersection with a box. And not only I can click them, but when I click them, can you see that the pivot point is moved? This is why. Because when I click operands and then I select the operand from this list, I can still modify that particular operand. So the only problem is that now my box is invisible because the box has been subtracted. But look, if I move that subtracted box, you can notice this. You can see that I am able to move the box to change where the object is cut, as well as I can technically move this cylinder and I will change the aspect. I can scale it. And all my objects are still editable objects. And let me show you this simple example. Look. I can make this box and I will make a sphere here. So I can select the box. I can make a compound object, prooboolean, start picking, check, there is subtraction, then start picking, and pick the sphere. As you may see, we will check that now I have the sphere that has been subtracted from the box. But if I go to the Modify tab, and I click Operands, I can still select my box as well as my sphere. And I can also check that probably the sphere should go a little bit above, or I want the sphere to be moved in these other positions. And in this way, I will realize that I don't have to be extremely precise from the beginning when I create all my objects that I want to combine inside a prooboolean. I can simply start by combining them, and then I can adjust them when I need to have a slightly different result. Like this. Okay? So let me show you one last example that is something that will probably change your life forever. In understanding that you can move and modify elements inside your prooboolean, because this would be just too cool to be true. There is this. Look. Let me delete everything and see which kind of object I will create. I will combine multiple techniques. So I will make a box here. Then I will shift and move this box up. Then I will draw these shapes. Look, with line, I will draw 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I know I could make outline to be more precise, but I'm lazy. Yes. Then I will also create this shape. Last but not least, I will create this shape. So something that goes inside my first one. Okay? I have made them as 3 independent shapes simply because for each of these 3 shapes I want to use a slightly different extrude modifier. So I will select this one. I use extrude And I will extrude this shape just a little bit. And then I rotate it 90 degrees. Oh, no, let's rotate things just at the end. Then I select this shape. I use extrude. And I extrude a little bit more. I will fix it later. Last but not least, I will extrude this one. So I use extrude that I skipped here. Boom. So I select these three things together and I will make them 90 degrees so that they are vertical. And I move them so that they touch those boxes that I have created before. Now I will shift and move these elements. I will increase the extrusion amount of this element, and I will move a bit behind and extrude a bit more this element as well. I'm about to create a house, as you may see, and you will notice that this house starts by having no windows, no doors, nothing. So I will also add a few more elements. So I make this box and I will move it in a way that goes through the entire house, just not from the ground. And I will shift and move it here. And then I will make at least another box in here. And this, for me, will be the door. That starts, more or less. So now, check this. I will use prooboolean, and I will use mainly union and subtraction. So, look, select one starting object, click prooboolean, union first, start picking, and I start joining this box with this wall, with this wall, with this other floor, with this roof. Then I join also the back wall. Now I have to make subtraction, so I have to close start picking, change to subtraction, click start picking, and pick these additional boxes that I have created before. Okay? And I have, something that look, it's not super precise in here, but it's okay. This is just a very simple example. Till here, nothing weird. But what I want to show you is that, see this particular step that I do now. That is, once that I have made one prooboolean and everything has been joined or subtracted, I will make an additional box. And I will be sure that this box is larger, longer, and taller than the entire house. Okay? And what I will do is I will keep at the beginning this box far from my house, so that it is detached. It has nothing in common with the house. But I select the house, I go to the Modify tab, I check Subtraction has operation, and I click start picking, and I pick this box here. Okay? When I will pick it, you will see something weird happening. That is, technically, you will see the box just disappearing. But why? Simply because the box is not touching the house, but the box will be removed as operation. So because it's not cutting anything in particular, it will just disappear. And this is what happens. Look. But then, see the magic. I close, start picking. I click operands. And if I scroll the list of my objects, first of all, I can notice something a little bit annoying. That is, all my objects in my prooboolean, they have names that are pretty similar. They are called box 1, 2, or line 1, 2, and so on. But what is important to know is that the order of this menu is also the exact same order that I have used in order to click my elements. So last big box that I have subtracted, the box that is actually, because it is there, believe it or not, but the box is here. Okay, let's pretend that the box is here. It is just subtracted. But last box is the one that I have clicked as a last, and is also listed as last. So if I select it, I will select that big box that I'm subtracting, and it is not touching the house. Okay? Ready for this? See what happens if now I move the box and I move the box to the house that I have created. Ready? Steady, go. Look. I move the box so that it intersects the house. And you will see that in this way I can make sections. I can make section of this house. But if I keep moving the box, I can make the other section. If I move the box, instead of moving it along the y, along the x, I can move it along the y. So you will see this happening, and then I can shift it like that, and I will make this section of the house. As well as, believe it or not, the reason why I've made it larger also is that I can cut everything. But if I move the box, instead of left, right, instead of back and forth, I can move my box up, and I will have what is technically the floor plan of my house. With windows cut at a certain height, and so on and so on. When my big box has no volume in common with that house, you will see the entire model. But you are always free to move that gigantic box whatever you need, and you can create sections that are also like half front section and half floor plan. If you want to show your client what's inside your ground floor, what is inside your first floor, and you can easily create these broken elements. Okay? If this is clear, if this is clear, I want to make one last tiny example in prooboolean. Then I will start introducing edit poly, but we will just see the beginning because it is pretty complex, and I will mainly explain it next week. But last example with prooboolean is this. A lot of times operations like intersections are operations that no one uses because wait a second, I have a question. Wait. Question about the homework when you're done. Exactly. Just wait. Explain a few more things, then let's see the homework. And let me show you one more thing about prooboolean. When intersection becomes extremely important. Look, if I make two objects like this, and before using prooboolean, I do simply shift and move, and I make a copy of my selection. I have to make a copy so that they will be similar, but I can use them into different proobooleans. Why intersection is extremely useful? Simply because if you make in one set of tools, you make subtraction, and in second set you make intersection, what you obtain at the end is you obtain two matching pieces like these. Look, select my first box, I click compound, prooboolean, then I click subtraction, I click start picking, and I pick the sphere. This is very simple. This is box minus the sphere. But if I have a precise copy previously created of my two objects, and in my second set of elements I make an intersection, look, prooboolean, intersection, start picking, and then I pick these, what remains is the volume that at the same time was inside the box and inside the sphere. Why doing this? Simply because in this way, believe it or not, we have created two perfectly matching pieces. And if we want to make movable elements, if we want to make like a furniture element that has a drawer inside, and we want to be precise, we can simulate these matching pieces in this simple way. Also, the day when we will study materials, we can also check that in this way, and we can be also, very precise, because I can also move things with snap, and they will perfectly match. They are so precise that you will barely see them, but if I select them, we can see their highlighted edges. But in this way, we can also give one day this part a material, this part another material, so that they will look like a unique object but with different finishes for one side or the other side. And this is why also learning subtraction and intersection is something that is extremely useful. So now, let me check. So to make something more organic, let's do this. I would like to see, also because it is not as fast as it is in class, I would like to hear from you if you have questions, both about this tool or about previous homework that we had. So because for this week only, you have no homework, because I want to explain edit poly next week, and next week I will give you homeworks that will be a lot more complex, and but for this week there is no homework. So if you have questions, also because remember, see, from the moment when you type your question and the moment that you see my answer into the video, there is a delay. There is from 10 to 15 seconds. So if I look weird, like into the camera, just because I'm waiting your questions. So make me questions, and for today, then we will stop learning new things here. Question time. I'm waiting. The worm from the homework I had. Oh, that's very simple. Okay, so your classmate asked this. Look, this week homework was this thing here, the worm. So I mean, was the octopus. Yes. I mean, your classmate, let's see if I'm right, but your classmate is asking this. While the loft wasn't a big issue, but she's asking how this part and this part, if we remove eyes, this is perfectly rounded. Is it true? Is this the question? I hope the answer is yes. Perfect. Check this. To make this happening, you must, let's say, create your loft with your circle shape, and then select the path. We'll just make it more realistic. I add the circle and join. No, just like that. Look. You select your path. You go to compound, loft, get shape, get the circle, and at the beginning, this is how the loft will look like. But now we need to add the adjustment that is called scale. So we need to deform the worm. So we go to the Modify tab, we open Deformations, we click Scale, and I showed you that with Scale we can add several control points and we can start tweaking them. So we will do this. I will just add a lot of points, and then I will start moving. The beginning and the end of the worm, I will make them basically 0. Then let me also move these exactly like this, and then I will just shift some of these up, some of these down. And this will be the worm. Where is the problem? If you notice, my scaling shape is sharp, and you can see that here this scaling segment is sharp, so that the head of the worm starts from 0. It becomes larger, but it goes from 0 to this scaling value with a linear straight shape. What I can do instead inside my scale function is this. I can select vertices. I can select one, I select all of them or some of them, and I can right click and change them from corner to Bezier corner. This is why. Look, if I zoom in here, exactly, to see what is happening. If I change my vertices to Bezier, not only they can be moved up and down, but they also have the tangent that I can manipulate in order to give my scaling not a linear movement, but I will make it a curvy movement. If I also change this in the way that it makes like an arc, poof, I will see that I can have the head and at the same time the tail of the worm. So I will zoom out and I will go at the end of this function here. You can see that same problem happens at the very end. So I select at least last 2 vertices of my scaling function. I right click on them, and from corners I make them Bezier corners. And then instead of moving them, I will move their handles, their tangents. Maybe this is a little bit too much. Exactly, something like this. And now I have that even starting and ending point of the worm have perfectly rounded faces. If you want to do also something extremely complex, you may notice this. You may notice that sometimes the loft looks with not enough segments. So if I make something like these, I would like here to have a more rounded result. In that case, one extra parameter that you have in loft is called skin parameters. So if you click path steps and you increase these, you will have simply more segments along the path, and you can also have more segments along the shape. Also now, simply because before in my prooboolean I had edged faces, we can see this a lot of white edges, but if you left click and you disable edged faces, you can see a perfectly smoothed result. Okay? Thank you. You're welcome. Is there any other question? Because if not, for today we are done. Also, starting at 11:05 more or less, because in general I wait a few minutes more, I will do same class for my next group. So if you even want to review prooboolean that I've explained here, I mean, you have also other two. Also, if you have nothing better to do, you can stay other 2 hours in front of the screen just to see me doing same things again: prooboolean, move, intersection, and subtraction, and so on and so on. Okay? Any other question? Let's count 5. But there is also delay, so I will wait a few more. Perfect. Thanks to all of you. And if you want more, you can connect in 10 minutes. If not, we will see each other next week. Bye.